I was a sex worker for many years and worked in the sex industries. And it has always been interesting to me the conversations that around sex work that assume, A, that any of us doing political work don't have those histories, don't bring those histories to our political understanding, and that sex work is somehow by and of itself the worst thing that could have ever happened to you, and of course you only did it because you were poor. And never talks about the other kind of alternatives that you might have been forced to choose, as though those are separate questions. And I think that the conversation, especially when we're talking about sexual freedom, the question of sex work, to me, is a question of the context of where you, again, do that work. If you have no safety, if you cannot control the circumstances of your employment, you cannot control the consequences of that employment. And that is as true in sex work as it is in, diamond mines and child migrant work and other circumstances that are completely about the lack of choices that people have. So the choice that you might actually make to do sex work is contextual. If you're on the street, if you're addicted, if you have absolutely no possibility for having a place to sleep, sex work becomes a very different kind of workplace than if you can control both the space and the client and what you say yes and what you say no to. That is never the conversation, frankly, that usually happens around it. And again, when we're talking about damage and danger, those are the kind of conversations that I think are really the critical ones. Not whether sex work is okay, but what the working conditions are, and whether or not people can control those working conditions or are driven to any kind of particular labor, because there is no other choice but to do that labor in order to eat. And hunger is never a good reason for having to work.